this is kind of that paradox, which is that on the one hand, you want to have something that feels lengthy, but at the same time, I don't want to feel like it's there just to pad the length of the game. I want actual content to it. Recently, Alex, on our live show, I played the Exit 8.
You did.
Which was a very nice... It was actually a birthday present that Crave got me, so thank you, Crave, for that. It was definitely an interesting kind of experience, not one that you normally get with games. I think that that's probably a good way to put it. The general idea being that you just have to reach the Exit 8, and constantly be on the lookout for anomalies that of things that are not right in the landscape that you're going through of this.
In this case, it was
subway.
A single hallway of subway.
Right. So you're going down this hallway and you're constantly trying to figure out if there are actually anomalies. And if you can rightfully see that there are anomalies, then you want to book it out of there. And this is how you identify them and keep going. Very simple mechanics. Basically, all you actually have to work with is observation. You just walk front and back. You basically just have walking and sightline controls in first person. That's
essentially
everything.
The game is a walking sim that is also a spot the difference game.
It is, and I'm remiss to really call it a walking sim because I think people would get the wrong impression of it.
Well, all you do is walk.
But you do walk, so I guess it is apt that we would call it a walking sim. It is, however, going to be a different experience than what people might imagine from, like, a Dear Esther, I think is a good way to put it. But, at any rate, very interesting game, great atmosphere. If you like the idea of liminal spaces, I think you're gonna get a lot out of it. But something that had been mentioned was talking about the length of the game, because I think I finished it in, maybe an hour and a half or something like that.
Something like that.
A little over an hour or something like that. But then we kind of dug back in because you can also find the rest of the anomalies that if you hadn't seen them all. Because technically, if you're really, really good, you can probably finish the game in about 10 minutes. If you can spot it and you can get through it, you can make the right choice, front or back, do I stay or do I go? You could run through it real fast. Most people, they're probably going to spend an hour and change or something on it. If they're, an average player. I'd consider myself an average player. I can't really say that there's a lot of replayability. I understand that. But the question about the length came up. If there's no replayability and it's only an hour long, is it really worth the money? And I guess my opinion on that is that games don't have to be long. And frankly, there are some games that do not benefit from being longer than they are. Exit 8 is a good example, because I don't really know if it would benefit at all from being a 10-hour long game.
I don't think so. It kind of did what it said it wanted. Like, it had a premise, it stuck to the premise, and it lived up to its premise.
Yes.
I'll read the Steam description for you. It says, "You're trapped in an endless underground passageway. Observe your surroundings carefully to reach the Exit 8.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the entire premise.
Yes.
And it delivers.
Yeah, it delivers on that.
I would also like to add that the game is only $3.99,
right?
Not on sale. So, you're not breaking the bank or anything for this. And if you're getting an hour and a half out of this game and enjoying this game,
sure,
for under $5, I see zero reason to complain.
Fine. I think it's fine, and also the idea that it is a unique experience, and it's not. I don't really see it as being generic or reminiscent of really anything else that I've played. It really is something very unique. But let's suggest for a moment that you had a game that might be a little bit more bog standard. We'll say that you have maybe another kind of narrative-based walking game, and maybe it's only a few hours long. I still think that that's worth your time. The example that I would give you would be Firewatch. I think that's probably one that I played, and I didn't know how long the game was. I bought it when it was full price. I think it was $15. But I was very interested to see what it was. Turns out the game's probably maybe 2.5 hours long altogether. You probably, if you really want to play around, you could do 3, and they also have kind of like an open version, so if you just kind of want to wander around the game world, you could do that too, and just do some observation. But the storyline itself, it's between 2 and 3 hours long. I don't regret getting it, though. Because what they set up was a really interesting narrative with interesting characters and a great setting, and they did a really good job of bringing that world to life and telling an interesting story that was atmospheric at the same time. It's a very good example of having a walking sim that is more than just walking around, where you actually get involved with characters. So.
Honestly, I feel like a game that can set up its premise, deliver you a world that feels good, narratively strong, or just fleshed out enough to not feel lacking.
Yes.
In such a short amount of time is a testament to the people making the game.
Oh, yes.
I have games that are several hundred hours long in my catalog that I still have no connection to the world in.
Yeah, and I think that this is the other thing that really needs to be talked about, because for every time I would mention The Exit 8, or Firewatch, or What Remains of Edith Finch, or Gone Home, which are also in that camp of being short but narratively rich, interesting, engaging worlds, I'm just going to say it, you have a Starfield. And Starfield might do a lot of things, and I played it probably for 100 hours, but I still believe in my heart that game did not need to be that big, and really would have been better off if it was much smaller in scale, much more pared down, and didn't have as much meandering to it, which it reveled in.
I would say I don't have crazy amount of time. EVE Online, for instance, I know that world building I can't get into. And then Elite Dangerous, again, I have like 800 hours in that game, and I have zero connection to the story. Right now, they've been doing this huge campaign with these Titan aliens going on or whatever, but they do nothing to draw you into that part of the story or narrative that they're trying to do. So it's like, cool that you're doing this big thing for players who want to do it, but you've done nothing to engage me to want to make me go and do that.
This is kind of that paradox, which is that on the one hand, you want to have something that feels lengthy, but at the same time, I don't want to feel like it's there just to pad the length of the game. I want actual content to it, which is why there are some games that are very, very short, but feel complete and, like, satisfying, and then there are games that are incredibly large but feel completely unsatisfying, it was just filler content that did not matter at all,
or it's just solid gameplay but terrible storytelling, or just no real narrative experience. For instance, Minecraft, you get like hundreds and hundreds of hours into Minecraft, but the storytelling aspect of it, not the greatest in the world.
Yeah, and Minecraft is one I've talked about before, but for me, it never really engaged. I don't know if it's the user interface or just the premise of the world or anything, but for me, I just never got into it. I could never really engage with the world in that way. But, at the same time, I understand the reason why people like it, and it's a wonderful creative tool, and you can do a lot with that world, because it is basically a big sandbox that you can play around in, for the most part. But you have your games that are like the big Bethesda RPGs, and some of them warrant the amount of time that you're putting into them, and some of them are really pushing the limit of what I would consider to be, satisfying gameplay. The other company that I think we kind of have to mention, it's going to be the elephant in the room, is Ubisoft, because Ubisoft is going to be the one that creates games that have a million different things that you can do, and you could play them for hundreds of hours, but frankly, do you want to? I'm probably going to only spend maybe 20 or so hours hopefully doing mostly the story missions and maybe the sub-story stuff, and not caring as much about everything else because it feels like padding that isn't satisfying.
A lot of it's just padding.
So there's definitely a case to be made that there are games that are far too long and games that might be short, but it does have a lot to do with what you're trying to accomplish with the game. And sometimes what you want to accomplish with a game only takes 2 hours to tell. And anything more is going to... I go back to thinking about, the Exit 8, since that's our most recent example. Is sure, I mean, I guess they could have made the Exit 80, and then you could just go through, 80 of these, and they could have put a bunch more... But honestly, do you think anyone's going to play that?
No, I think 8 was enough to not wear out its welcome.
Yeah, because if there was anything more, I think it would have gotten so endlessly frustrating that people would have bailed on it. You would have been lucky to see the end of it.
It would have been what is it? Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion.
Okay.
Have you seen that one?
No.
If you've seen that, it's 1,000 doors.
That's too many doors.
You got to go through 1,000 doors. That's the end goal of the game, I believe. No, is it 100? 1,000? Doesn't matter. Too many.
Yes.
And yeah, there are checkpoints every so many doors that you can do, and you can load a save, for instance. But this game doesn't require it, I don't think. I don't even know if there's a load save or a save feature in the Exit 8.
Yeah, no, not that I'm aware of. Which, again, is one of those things, if the idea is to play it in a single session, you really can't make that session 50 hours long.
Not unless you want it to be streamer bait and nothing else.
Yeah, and even then, good luck if you have a power glitch and the whole thing goes away.
Yeah. Ye old Nintendo days.
There are some games that will warrant being very, very long. And that's fine. One of the more recent examples that I could give you is I've been playing a lot of My Time at Sandrock. And that's a really cool game because I like My Time at Porsche, and it has the same basic premise. The thing that does that kind of warrants the length, because I put over 100 hours into it now. It's very lengthy as the kind of cozy sim kind of game, but every time they'll always have a story mission. And then after you complete a story arc, new things open up, and new dialogue opens up, and oh goody, there's another chapter to this storyline. And so there's a whole other thing that happens, and new characters get introduced, and old characters leave, and there's constant flow with this storyline and what you're doing, and there's always stuff to do that serves that purpose. That I understand. Even saying that, though, they probably didn't need to make the story quite as long and put as many parts in. I'm fine with that they did, but they probably didn't need to. Because I keep thinking to myself, how many people actually would make it to the end of this storyline?
I think I would prefer shorter games because there's just so many. There are so many games that just go, oh, this game is endless, or it's open world, you can do what you want, take as long as you want, or just procedural, or we've got 80 hours of gameplay in here. It's I don't finish games anymore.
It's so hard because they pad them with they shove so much stuff into them now.
It's when is a game finished? For instance, I have House Flipper 2. And I've done the main story.
Yeah.
But after that, I can't even do more jobs. I just build houses or whatever. And it's I can buy and sell houses and stuff. But I would like more missions.
Yeah.
To do that, because that would be more fun. Otherwise, it's you've beat the game. You've learned all the things. Now it's just an open world. It's just a sandbox at this point. I don't want sandbox games.
Right.
I want a game that I can go, I have beaten this game. My son beats games all the time. He's beaten Hollow Knight. He's beaten all the Luigi's Mansion games that he's gotten. He's 100% in Stray.
Nice.
Yeah. So he's sitting there and doing these games, and he's playing them 100%ing him. He did, what was that? There was a newer Super Mario game on the Switch that he borrowed, and he
Oh,
100%ed it. I want to be able to have a game that I said I finished.
yeah.
I haven't finished a game probably since the PlayStation 2. No, that's a lie. That's a lie.
Okay.
I finished Warhammer 40k Space Marine.
Space Marine. Okay, yeah.
And that was over a decade ago at this point.
Right. So,
But since then,
yeah.
what do I consider finished?
Right. Exactly. So what we got to do is we got to find a game that you would want to finish and see if we can actually find one.
It's like I can't finish World of Warcraft. There's always more to do.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's the reason I can't get back into it, because I'm like, there's never going to be an end to this, is there?
I don't think
I
there
can't
has.
even see
There
one.
doesn't always need to be an end. I think you just need to get your enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
But I would enjoy shorter games as well, because
Oh,
like you'd be like,
certainly.
an experience for me.
Right, because like the ones that you just mentioned, Hollow Knight and Luigi's Mansion and stuff, they're not particularly long games. I think they're somewhere maybe 10, 15 hours or something like that. Not particularly long games, but very good ones. Maybe that's one of the reasons I like Metroidvanias. They're not particularly long, but they do have really satisfying gameplay where you're constantly exploring and learning new things about the world. Even in RPGs, it's not terrible if your game is not like 100 hours long. I remember when Outer Worlds came out back in 2019, and there were people that were complaining that it was only like 30 hours long. And it's like, no, I think that that's fine, and frankly, I don't think I want them to pad it out longer than that. Because in that 30 to 40 hours that it had, it does take you to many different worlds that show you what the design of this world is and how it functions, and gives you a good representation of that from like the corporate planets and the exterior planets and the space stations. I think it does a good job at really just like telling you how the world works inside of this, and it's fine,
I feel like,
and it doesn't need to be more than that. Yes.
and I feel like at that point, if a game wants to give you more in the form of DLC, and you want more of that game, then that is acceptable.
Sure. Which is also something that Outer Worlds did, which is that it had a couple different expansions that took you to specific planets to talk about specific storylines.
The eternal struggle I have with CRPGs is that they have so much in them and so many things they want to tell you
Right.
that it's overwhelming.
Something that I guess I don't mind as much is if I can complete the storyline in a fairly small amount of time, or if there is a storyline that, isn't so long, but there's a lot of other stuff that's going on with the game. If they want to do that, I kind of understand it, but I wouldn't want them to pad out the main part of the game with a bunch of other crap to try and make the game artificially longer, Your game world can be big if you really want it to be, and you could explore it if you wanted to, but I don't necessarily need to see it all. I've gotten to the point where it's really like, going back to it like an Assassin's Creed 2, is like, I don't actually need to collect 200 feathers. I don't need to find them, and I don't care.
Yeah.
It's good that was not necessary for the storyline.
Kind of like podcasts and YouTube videos don't need to be super long. They can be just as long as you need to. As
Exactly.
long as it reaches that 10-minute mark.
We've already
I don't
done
know,
that,
like-
so I think we're good.
I don't know how any of that monetization stuff works.
I don't know how long, because again, this is something about like preferences, about how people feel. Once upon a time, like short videos were everything, like 10-minute mark, that's where people wanted to hit. And then like more recently, it's been like people will watch like 3-hour long essay pieces, and they'll just watch.
I enjoy hour-long videos.
Yes,
I
me
listen
too.
to them at work
Yeah.
because I have 8 hours and I can have my headphones in for 7 of those 8 hours at work.
Mm-hmm.
And I just go, let's find something interesting to listen to. Deep dives, icebergs, just video essays,
Yeah.
whatever.
The key is that it has to be interesting. That's the thing.
Yes. Interesting or entertaining.
Right.
Potentially both.
Yeah. I am not, however, going to be watching 5 hours of a bunch of people complain about the newest Marvel movie. Sorry.
No.
No, not happening. Know that you've done that. Anyway, but I think that we've pretty much said our piece on it. So, I think we can kind of get out of here. But if you have examples of games that are... might not be considered particularly long, but are definitely satisfying for what they do, feel free to tell us about it in the comments down below.
Yeah. What are some games that are short and sweet to the point and you loved, or some games that you feel are way too long and probably could have been over 100 hours ago?
Yeah, mostly because I think Alex needs a recommendation so we can see if he can finish a game at some point.
I'm looking forward to Space Marine 2 when it comes out in September, but who knows if that's going to have just a campaign that's not 80 hours.
Hey, you know what? If I know you have a game in your library right now that's not particularly long that you could probably finish.
Which one?
Spec Ops: The Line, because I got that one for you. That's only 5 hours or so.
Yeah, but I'd have to play it.
See, you have to do that. That's one thing.
I gotta forget about all the knowledge of what goes on in the game first.
Yes, you have to forget that you know about the game beforehand.
Because okay, side note for bonus content. Have you noticed that a lot of video essays love talking about the same fucking games?
Yeah.
It's like Outer Wilds, it's like Spec Ops: The Line, it's like
Yeah.
Hollow Knight.
They're
the
touchstones.
So many video essays, and everyone's like, I really want to talk about this game. And it's like, so does everybody else, so. The other thing that I will mention is that I'm not tired of necessarily, but I've noticed a very big trend of people who do video essays or just videos about bad games. Your favorite son is very guilty of this lately, where he goes, I played 10 more of the worst reviewed games on Steam. And I'm sitting here going, why not play 10 games you don't know about that are actually interesting?
Right, yeah.
Because everyone hears about these terrible games. One of the other guys I watch, Wicked Wiz, does terrible games, but he doesn't play like 10 at a time. He does 1. Or another person that I watch occasionally is like 0 players online, but that's a misnomer because he plays games that just have low population or almost none. But they still have people playing them. Yeah.
I had the concept, like, if I got into, like, trying to do that kind of, like, 10-game thing list, Iron Pineapple does it the best anyway, because it's always Souls-likes and a lot of things that you don't see before.
Iron Pineapple I'm okay with because he does Souls-likes that you might not have heard of, but he doesn't say they're terrible. He just goes, games you might not have heard of, I'm trying out, like, a bunch more Souls-likes.
Right. The thing I thought would be interesting, at least for me, is if, like, I went on Steam and I said, okay, here's a genre of games that I've been interested in, maybe it's Metroidvanias, something, and, like, look at, like, top-down, like, what are, like, you know, from like, top recommendations down, and see, okay, which ones are the ones I have not played or I'm not familiar with at all? Like, here's the ones that came up first that I have no previous knowledge of. I'm gonna play those. I'm gonna play those because I'm wondering what they are. That would be interesting to me. But
so I have the concept for what I want to do is playing games that have low or no reviews.
Oh yeah, that's also a good one. Yeah,
because then it's, hey, you probably haven't heard of this, and
because no one has.
So let's check this game out. Would I just play games I find interesting, or just play any games? And it's like, I also have to have the energy and effort and motivation to actually sit down and do it. So.
Yes, this is also true. But, you know, when you think about it, some of the biggest, like, cult hits, you know, the biggest trendy games that have been out there have been from somebody picking up an old game. Like, Among Us is a great example of this. that game came out several years before it hit, and then a streamer picked it up and was like, oh, this is a lot of fun, and then before you know it, everybody's got to play it. One day we'll have to brainstorm what we could actually do for, like, the Steam list.